I ended up on the path of music. Honestly, I was always on the path. I just never thought I would do it professionally. I mean, I'm a church kid, which is a different thing from Seattle, Washington, because that's where I was born and raised, and that's not really a churchy environment there, but I was born and raised in the church, so music was always a part of the fabric of my life. I grew up in a musical family, always sang with my siblings, but you know, being from Seattle and growing up in the 80s, going, I'm gonna be a professional singer was like, you know, there wasn't The Voice or American Idol, or so you didn't just really dream of that. And I thought, I'm gonna be a school teacher because I loved my first grade teacher, Mrs. Kemp. And, but honestly, which is comical because I tried to homeschool my kids for like 1 year, side note, but I would have been a terrible teacher. So I think it's probably a good thing that I didn't become a teacher. But there was this singing group, I called them like Christian Music's Menudo. They were like rotating members, had been around for like years, and they came through Seattle, and I just remember going, oh, maybe I could audition for them, and that would kind of be something fun to do for a couple of years. And so I left college, went and did that for 2 years, and I never came back. Like that changed the whole trajectory of my life. Ended up meeting my manager, who is still my manager to this day, like 26 or 7 years later. And he encouraged me to move to Nashville. And so I did. And yeah, I worked at Medicare because I needed to pay my rent. And I moved to Nashville with $200 in my pocket. A family let me live in their bonus room. And honestly, I'm making it sound easier than it was because it was a long road, but a really beautiful journey of the kindness of people along the way that invested in me and said, yeah, we're gonna help you, or yeah. That's what I think about Nashville. It's one of the things that makes Nashville so unique to any other entertainment city, is that you come here and you feel like you meet people and they make another seat at the table for you. And I've always found that to be the most beautiful thing about Nashville, is instead of it being, no, this is my seat or my table, or I'm gonna work for what works best for me, they go, let's make the table bigger and let's just add another chair. And that's what I have felt ever since moving to Nashville. Sidebar, but with all the people moving here, you just kind of want to sit them down and go, this is how we do things here. So don't bring that other thing from LA or New York, don't bring that here, because that's not who we are. Anyway, sidebar. I mean, some of the most defining moments were honestly all the setbacks. So I moved here in 1996. I started getting to do session work in like 97, 98, some really Chris Rodriguez and incredible people that, you know, back then, the way records were made were a little different than they're made now. But I got to sing on a lot of really cool records and get experience in the studio that way. And then I got my first record deal, and my first record came out and the record company closed. They got bought, and then that label went out of business, so I lost my deal. So then I signed a second record deal. That company closed after I made a record for them, and I was like, I see a habit here I see a pattern here that's not good. Then I got my third deal, which I have been in for over 20 years with Curb. But with each setback, you know, or like a label closing, I had a choice to make. Like, is this actually what I'm called to do? Is this just kind of like a cool job that I wanted to do? Or is this something I feel like I was made to do? And it strengthened not only my resolve in music, but my faith. Because I'm, you know, the core of who I am is my faith. And I think just leaning on that and going, okay, do you actually believe what you say you believe? Because if you do, it's going to be put to the test. And I think all of those setbacks, however, are the most defining moments because it gave me the resolve to keep going. You know, it's funny, I've been asked oftentimes, like, why Christian music and why haven't you tried to cross over, or whatever all of those things are. And honestly, to me, it was just the only option. And I think because when I chose to do music, I love to create, I love to write. Back then, I didn't even know I could write a song. So that's developed through the years of wanting to connect with my audience through things that were actually me and not someone else's experience. But I think for me, my faith is so the core of who I am that I felt like I was a truth teller about the truth of my life and what I'd experienced, and I just got to do that through the medium of songs. And so more than being a singer, I feel like I sing to tell the truth. Like a truth that for me is the most important truth. And so I never And I grew up on Christian music. Like, people that, I don't know, I think sometimes Christian music has kind of gotten this like, oh, well, it's, a stepping stone, or I did that because I couldn't do this, or that's not the case for me. I've been a fan of Christian and gospel music my whole life, and it is such a privilege to be in this genre. So there's no other option for me. Wow. Hard to maybe pick just one, but there would be two. One was back in 2000, and I want to say 5 maybe, or 7, 5, I think. But it was called The Real Me. And that was one of the first songs I'd ever written all by myself. And it was just kind of the story of how I feel like my faith in God has really helped me see who I am and have faith in myself. And then more recently, a song called Clean. And I think that for me is kind of the story of the gospel. And I think in the world we're living in, that truth kind of gets muddied up a little bit because people try to force rules or religion, or they're trying to force a certain way to live on somebody instead of going, actually, no, who Jesus was somebody who loved people and told them the truth but did it in love. And that song is kind of like helping people see your shame, your mistakes, all those things don't define you, but there's actually a love that can define you. And I think that's probably my favorite song I've ever written. It's funny, even when I hear that word covers, like covers album, I think that there's, especially for people in the music industry, there's like 2 kind of connotations that come with that. One, they just needed something to get them by in between the last record they made and the next new, material record they make, or they're trying to finish out their record deal, like their requirement. And neither of those are true for me. This is actually probably gonna go down for me as one of my favorite records I've ever made. It's not a filler record, it's a history record. For me, it's the core of who I am. I think, I've said I've been a fan of Christian and gospel music my whole life. And so these are songs from different seasons of my life. And, there's always this thought that we wanna look ahead, we wanna keep making new content, but sometimes it really is beautiful and empowering to look back and go, okay, where did I come from? What is something that carried me through? What is something that helps define who I am? And these songs are that for me. Like, I can think back to being a child and hearing my mom sing my tribute in the kitchen when she was cooking and we were listening to it on vinyl. Or I can think to when I graduated from high school and I sang In Christ Alone by Michael English. Or when I was doing my session work and I was the demo singer for I Need You. And like, there's all these different history lessons of my life through all of the songs that I chose. And so for me, and then to get to do collaborations with like Dream, I mean, honestly, the collaborations list, it's a flex. I'm not even gonna lie. It is like pretty incredible. And artists that were my heroes growing up to artists that are heroes to me now because they're doing something fresh and new in our genre, in our industry. This record is like a dream come true. The songs are a very eclectic mix, and I think that points to the fact that I'm kind of eclectic in the fact that I wasn't ever just CCM. Everyone who knows anything about my artistry would go, that girl's been influenced by gospel. I grew up listening to gospel. One of the most influential artists on me was an artist named Mahalia Jackson. My dad would play her on vinyl for me every day of my life when I was a little kid. And to CeCe Winans, to Aretha, to Richard Smallwood, to Fred Hammond. There's just gospel music really had a very profound impact on my life. And being in this genre for so long, I've seen such growth in integrating gospel and Christian, right? It's been always like, this is CCM and this is gospel. And it's been so beautiful to kind of see those lines blurred a little bit. This record is that. And I picked the songs that mattered to me. I picked songs that were important to me. And more importantly, I picked artists. And I had a dream list. I just didn't expect them all to say yes, but they did. I was like, well, the worst that can happen is we ask and they say no. And then we're just right where we started, but they just might say yes. And they kept saying yes. And I'm blown away. Well, I mean, like, for example, so some of my, one of my favorite songs is Shackles by Mary Mary. And, you know, when I thought about, I want to do Shackles, I mean, I don't know anybody from that moment that didn't, whether you even loved Christian music or not, you knew that song and you were dancing to that song and you were bopping in your car to that song. So I'm like, everybody loves Shackles. But Mary Mary had never done another version of it. They'd never remade it in 20 years. And I thought, wouldn't it be incredible if they actually said yes to doing the song? I fully expected them to say no, because why would they remake it for the first time with an additional person? But I've had relationship with them through the years, and sidebar, I do think that this speaks to the importance of relationship and how important it is to invest in people over process or product or what they can do for you. And I feel like that's a bit of a testimony to investing in people through the years, having friendships with people when not trying to get something from them. And then all of a sudden you have years of history and they want to say yes to you because they know that their relationship is valuable to you. And Mary Mary was that. CeCe Winans was my hero. One of the first concerts I ever went to was a BB and CeCe Winans concert. Dolly Parton, that doesn't even need explanation. She's Dolly Parton. And you know, even to like Torrin Wells and Kane and people that are doing such beautiful things in our industry now. You know, it was Tasha Cobbs Leonard. There was so many things, and I would hear a song, I would pick the song and go, I want to do this song because it matters to me. And I would just instantly go, my dream would be to do this with Tasha, right? And then I would just ask her and she said yes. So the Dolly collaboration, what a dream. It's kind of an incredible story how it even happened, because I was asked to do the opening concert for Dollywood this year, okay? So I was really excited to do that, had no clue that Dolly was going to be there. So I'm doing the show, like the week before we do the show, my management company gets a request from Dolly that said, I mean, only Dolly would even phrase it this way. She's Dolly Parton. The park is called Dollywood. And she says, if it wouldn't trouble Natalie too greatly, would it be possible for me to sing a song with her? And I'm like, what? Yeah, I think it's possible. I think we can make that happen. And so we met, and it was just this instant. I think anybody who's met Dolly would say that. That's part of her gift, is making everybody feel like they're her best friend. But then I knew I was doing this song, and the initial idea was to kind of get a bunch of girls together and do this step-by-step song from the Preacher's Wife soundtrack that Whitney recorded, Annie Lennox wrote. It's like you just feel that just power when you hear that song. It's one of the songs from a season of my life when I first moved to Nashville and was working at Medicare, a job I hated, but wanted to do music. I would listen to that song every day on the way to work and go, you know, it's just step by step. Just keep on moving, just keep moving forward. Little steps will turn into giant leaps someday. So I was like, I'm gonna cover this song. And I did not even know that my manager had then reached back out to Dolly and sent the song and said, hey, any chance Dolly would do this song? And we got a response back that was like, Dolly's doing her own covers record right now. She's too busy. But she's so honored that Natalie asked and all that. So he said, Dolly passed. And I was like, on what? So I didn't even know that he had asked her. Then all of a sudden, I get a letter from Dolly Parton. It was on Dolly letterhead. It says Hot Pink Dolly across the top. And I'm like, is this even real life? Like, what is happening? And it says, Natalie, I just keep listening to that song step by step. I can't get it out of my head. It keeps ringing and calling me back. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then she goes, if you haven't found somebody to sing on that with you yet, would it still be okay for me to sing on that song with you? And I'm like, wait, she's asking to be like, what is life? So I may have framed that letter and I will be keeping it forever, displaying it in a very prominent place. But then for me, it was like, okay, she's gonna sing on this song, but I had no idea she would give her heart and soul to that song. Like, I was on tour, so I didn't get to be there when she recorded her vocal, but when they sent it to us, you could just hear how invested she was in that. She gave her creativity to it. She arranged the whole very end of the song was her arrangement idea. And it just, I don't know, it was even more than I could have ever imagined that it would be. She's Dolly. There's no one like her. No one like her. Oh yes, we printed it and framed it, put it in the studio. We're like, oh yeah. I mean, uncomfortable in the sense that sometimes people can misunderstand, especially, it's a sad reality of the moment we're living in, but we're living in a divided moment, right? So politically divided, just racially divided, religiously divided. And so people, and then in the world of social media, people are so loud and so bold when they feel kind of anonymous. They feel very empowered behind a keyboard. And it feels like sometimes people can go, well, why did you record that song? Like a Dear Evan Hansen song was a perfect example from my own, community. People were confused by that. Like, this song doesn't talk about Jesus. Why are you recording this song? I'm like, because this is an unbelievably incredible song, number one. An incredible musical turned movie that deals with a very important topic that I've struggled with. So hard, yeah, but not really, because it's true to my own story. I struggled with depression, postpartum depression after the birth of my third child. And then it just kind of turned into just depression. I struggle with anxiety. And I think that what we need is just people to be honest about their struggles. And I think when we put this idea out there that people of the Christian faith don't, it's this perfect, if you just follow God, then you've got this, that's just so not real life. If your life was perfect, you wouldn't need to follow God. So for me, my faith is one of the things that helps to strengthen me, but also talking about real life issues and realizing that people all around us as well are struggling. You can look at people that you think have their life together and then they've ended their life and you don't even realize, what was the story? We didn't even know they were struggling. It's because they didn't feel like they could be honest. And I feel like moments like this and conversations like this help to kind of remove that stigmatism and hopefully give people the courage to say, no, I'm gonna speak up about the issues I'm facing. Okay, two. I know you keep asking for one, I'll say two. One is My Tribute, which is a song by the late Andre Crouch, one of the great gospel artists, gospel giants of the 70s and 80s. He wrote songs that are now literally in the hymnal. I mean, you're like, wait, how? He's incredible. And that song was a song from my childhood, a song I sang with my family, and then to get to do it with somebody who I think kind of embodies the lyric, which is CeCe Winans. It was just a whole full circle. It was personal in so many different ways. And then I did a cover of To Make You Feel My Love by Bob Dylan. And that came about because we were on a family vacation driving in a rental car and my kids were telling me how much they loved Adele's song, To Make You Feel My Love. And I was like, I think her version is incredible, but it's not an Adele song. And they were like, yes, it is. I'm like, no, it's a Bob Dylan song. And so then I played them Dylan and they were like, okay, and we were talking about why they liked this version better or that. And there was something, I can't explain it, but all three of my daughters were sitting across the seat in the back seat of this rental car. And it gets to that verse, I'd go hungry, I'd go black and blue, I'd go crawling down the avenue. There's nothing I wouldn't do to make you feel my love. And I'm like, I know Dylan did not write this song as a song from a mother to their children, but this is exactly what I would say to my kids. And I started to cry and my kids are like, are you crying right now? I'm like, I am. I've never heard this song in this way, but this is what I would sing to you. And I ended up deciding to cover it, and I put my mom on it. And she's 83 years old. They still live in my childhood home, and my husband, who's my producer, flew out to Seattle and recorded her vocal in my childhood home. And I don't know, just to have my mom and me and my daughters are singing the backgrounds on it, it's very personal and really special. A gift to my family for sure. Yeah, so I've been married to my husband for 24 years. Can't even believe it's been that long. But we met through music. When I was getting my first record deal, I needed to do a showcase for the label. And I was like, I don't play any instruments and I don't know any musicians. I hadn't been in Nashville very long. And the A&R person at the label was like, hey, I know this piano player. And I ended up hiring Bernie to play for me for that showcase. And honestly, I met him and was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm your wife. I don't think you know that yet, but I'm pretty convinced. And that was before I even heard him play the piano. That's when I first saw him. And then he played and I was like, yeah, I'm for sure gonna need to be your wife. And honestly, we just had a connection from the beginning. And he ended up playing for me in the first year of our marriage. I couldn't afford a band. And so he would go out and play for me. And then he started writing and producing for everybody else, and he didn't love the road, so he ended up staying home. And then 2020 happened. We're stuck in our house. We start doing a song a day keeps the crazies away and posting it on Instagram, thinking we're just gonna do this just to try to keep ourselves from losing our own minds and just being creative and having a creative outlet. And I think last count was like 76 million people watched those videos, or something insane that you can't plan for. You know what I mean? I'm like, if I would have known that, I probably would have not been in my pajamas every time we did those videos. But it ended up showing us, wait, people really connect to this story, song, husband and wife, just this, what if we took that on the road? Like, what if we went back to how we started and simplified it? And it's just been really beautiful to not only see all these people connect with it, but it's been really special for us. It's like a returning to how we started, and it's been so, so special. It's ended up being like our favorite thing we've ever done. And so we get to keep doing it. We're doing like, 12 to 15 a year, because it's really all we have time to do together. But every time we get to do it, it's been really, really special. A Christian artist in today's marketplace, to me, it is the greatest privilege to be a part of creating music that's full of hope. And I think that I hear that so many times from people. Like I'll go do something and you'll hear from people that are like, I don't even go to church, but I listen to Caleb, or we did a show at a prison here in Middle Tennessee. It was a women's prison, and I actually had the opportunity to meet so many of the inmates, and they would all say, one of the only things we get to have in our cell is a radio, and we listen to Christian radio, and we listen to those songs because those songs build us up. They make us feel hope. They make us feel encouraged. And that's when you realize, wait, I'm not just a part of making music, I'm a part of making music that actually puts a deposit in people that makes them feel hope, makes them feel like they can take another step when they feel like they can't keep going. And that's when you realize, wait, this music is doing that. And I think that's why you see it growing. Like, this genre is growing, and it continues to grow and expand and reach so many more people. And I think it's because people are just really hungry for hope. And that's what this music is. Well, I think the song contest is a great way. I think, gosh, when I think about what people have at their fingertips now that those of us that started a couple of decades ago never had, social media, I mean, you have the opportunity. You see people my kids know artists I'm like, how do you know that? What is that song? Who is that person? They're like, TikTok. And it's like they're actual TikTok artists. And I think that in that way, people have the opportunity through those channels to have their music and their songwriting heard in ways that were never available to people before. And what an opportunity for people to have their songs heard. And I think that honestly, writing songs that are honest, that are transparent, and that are just have a way of, especially when you're putting it on social media, I think if you've got a song you love, get to your hook fast. Like, just decide you're not gonna have all of this. It doesn't need to be elaborate production. If it can sing with just a guitar or a piano and it works, then you know you've got a great song. Get to your chorus fast, and then you know you've got something great.